Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their business so that we can all learn together. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversations with their ideal prospects. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, endless social media, posting, or any of those old, ineffective, traditional marketing methods that everybody hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. So the link to that will be in the show notes below. On today's show, our special guest is Lynda Shaw. She is the owner of Brain and Behavior Ltd. And Lynda is a behavioral neuroscientist and leadership psychologist specializing in damaging blind spots and turning them into sweet spots. So, Lynda, welcome to the show today. I want to start off by asking you a question that I always like to start off with, which is this. If you were somehow able to go back in time to when you started your very first business, but knowing what you know now, what would you do different in the first 12 months?
I wouldn't, oh gosh, okay. I probably wouldn't angst over some of the things I worried about, things like website, things like all of that stuff that is not going to sell you straight away because cash flow is king, right? The biggest business I ever had, I had 20 members of staff, and I know what it's like to run a business of that size, and I know what it's like to manage people at that level. And they're the key. The people are the key to make your business move quickly. So invest your time in them and equally maybe enable them to talk about this brilliant place they're working and this great new product that they're doing, and all, get them to be your sales force without realizing it, because you can spend ages on websites and different marketing and different things like that, which of course are important, but not necessarily though at the so much so at the very beginning, because they also take a lot of money and you need that cash.
Yeah, yeah. What are some things that you would have done differently than if so obviously starting, you wouldn't have had a team of 20. And what would you have done differently then without putting so much time into kind of websites and all that to actually build and grow the business?
Okay, if I didn't have start, I actually did have 20s right from the start, word go. It was
Oh, okay.
but so that's why I suppose I know what it's like to be in that cash flow situation.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have any staff at all and I was starting from scratch, I would find myself half a dozen key people who have very good contacts, not necessarily up there in the stratosphere, but people who perhaps have got your their database is your ideal client base, and I'd actually talk to them. I'd actually just find out if there was a fit, and I would spend time investing that. I'll tell you something I did. Before I had the health club, I had a catering business, and it was way back, a long, long time ago. And I it was supplying executive lunches into the City of London, something that was unheard of. It was new in those days. So I went to the NEC in Birmingham, and it was a computer trade fair. And in those days, it was mostly men on the stands. And I was in my early 20s, this little thing talking about food. Okay. I chose the third day, the last day of the exhibition, and I went round talking about food to people, to men who were sick of disgusting coffee, stuck in that false lighting for absolutely ages, desperate to get out in the fresh air, and really cheesed off at standing on these stands, doing what what they're supposed to do. And I got 60 leads that day. And that was the start of my business big time. And if only I could work out how to do marketing like that now, I'd be really, really grateful. But it worked. And I think sometimes if we're starting from scratch, we need to think quirkily. We need to think in a sort of a very innovative way, putting ourselves in the shoes of our ideal client. Where are they? Why do they need us so, so badly?
Yeah.
And how can we just make it a bit of fun?
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
I was wearing high heels and it wasn't fun at all. It was all day walking around this place. But hey, it was the start of a really good business.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love as well. Like, couple things out of that is you did something outside of the ordinary, right? Which a lot of times people just sit there behind their stands and wait for business to come to them. But you went out and started talking, and you just started building a relationship, having conversations, and then I'm sure you followed up with them and maybe went met up for a couple coffees afterwards or phone calls or whatever you ended up doing on that. But that's amazing that you just put that into place. And I think, as you said, small little quirky things like that, thinking outside the box. I think people try to shoehorn in too much, like, well, I have, as you said, we have to have a website, we have to run ads, we have to do this. It's like, well, we like there's nothing wrong with doing that, but I think there's a lot of other ways. That I love that. I love that. You mentioned earlier that the business you went straight into already had 20 staff.
Oh,
Um,
God.
sorry.
I was going to say, didn't already have. I created it straight away, and we had
Oh,
to start straight away.
wow. Tell me about that. That's interesting.
That was brave.
Yeah, it was. That's why I'm asking. Because when you said, I was like, you did what?
Okay. I was a business owner. My husband was there too, but he had a full-time job in the City of London. So I was the everything. And we rented the rear of an old cinema, very, very old cinema. So if you can imagine in the old days, 1,000 years ago, cinema doors used to be the size of houses to be able to push in all of the massive camera equipment and everything else. So the main area of this building was this cavernous, incredibly tall, looks like stories, loads and loads of stories high, with little rooms at the side where all the organ pipes were. And that was it. So we decided to take it on and turn it into a health club. And our only competition was one other health club in a 50-mile radius. It was, again, way back. So again, it was quirky. It was off. It was a big risk, but we worked hard and made it happen. But we had to put in floors in this area for all the gym equipment. I had absolutely everything in that club. I had a creche. I had beauty rooms. I had gym, pool gym. I had studio, creche. I mean, it was all there except a swimming pool, saunas, showers, coffee bar. It was all there. Shop. So we created everything, and we put these floors in, and we were running very, very late because the original builders actually didn't do what they said they were going to do. And we were running out of cash. We did run out of cash. And we had then had to get into bank money, which was a shame, but we had to do it. And we had to then get rid of them and employ new builders. Now I'm in charge of the builders, okay? I knew nothing. I still know nothing about builders. I had a hard hat. I was climbing ladders. I was doing everything. At one point, one evening through the night, we had 19 tradespeople on site working, and I was up with them all night, and we were doing things. And it was an astonishing time. And the day we opened, I had to have the staff in place. And so we had actually had all we relied on were the local newspapers advertising a health club was coming to town. And there were deals of joining on the day of opening. We had 2,000 people walk through the door. It was
Whoa.
unbelievably brilliant. The problem with it was that although the club was extremely successful, and I had to start with those people at the very beginning, and it all worked really, really well, and we maintained 2,000 membership throughout. We were also into that bank money, and base rate went to 15%. And in real terms, in business terms, that means more like 18%. So that was hurtful, hugely hurtful. And we were really running the business to finance the debt. So that's why I started this call with talking about cash flow. It really is king. It can
Mm,
make or break the smallest and biggest business and the smallest and largest household. You have to be really, really careful about your cash flow. So over investing at the start of a business is dangerous.
Mm.
Really have got to make sure you've got some momentum there. And
Yeah.
which is why I say, try to really rein back, pull back on any expenditure so that you start to bring in some positive cash.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. And that's amazing. What ended up happening? I know you said you're running it to kind of finance the bank loan, but how did things end up with that business?
It ended up after a couple of years that the electricity board decided that all businesses from in 48 hours had to give them 3 months deposit on their latest monthly bill. And our monthly bill, it was February, the coldest month of the year, and we had a very high electricity bill with the saunas, the showers, the hot water, the heating, all of those things, the lighting and so on. And I can remember the bill now. It was only £900, but it was a lot in those days. And the electricity board insisted that we owed them £2,700, and we didn't have it.
Wow.
We had the 900 that we owed, but we didn't have this extra. So they turned the electricity off. No burglar alarm, no heating, no hot water, no nothing. We slept we slept in the reception with a Doberman, and on deck chairs because there was no security for the place. I was in a terrible state. It was a really bad time, really, really bad time. Anyway, we managed to get out of it. We managed to sell what we had, which was 10% of market value, and we started again. So I learned some massive lessons from that. And it makes me twitch to this day when when the cash flow is an issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Oftentimes I'll ask questions like, what was your biggest challenge to the lessons you learned and all that, but I'm not even having to ask these because like the whole story, it's one of the reasons why I love doing this is because as business owners, if we can share these stories, we all go through challenging times on one level or another, and just hearing what other people have gone through, you kind of go, okay, I'm going through stuff. There is a way out. You can get to the other side, and just inspiration around it as well, which is absolutely amazing. I love that. I love that. Well, what are your goals now? I mean, obviously, I know you're not in the. I guess you kind of are in health, but not from a health spa perspective anymore. But what are your goals with your business now, with everything you're doing as a working as a behavioral neuroscientist and leadership as a psychologist? What are you looking to do with the business now?
These days, I was awarded my doctorate 18 years ago, and my research was all about unconscious processing, and consciousness has been my big thing. I've been reading about and studying about consciousness since I was 14 years old. So I love the topic of consciousness and what it means, what it is, and I think very much, very expansively. I think way out there. Um, However, what I've discovered is that in business, and I've been working with brain and behavior for some years now, and with leaders for a long time. Um, there's so many blind spots, and of course, blind
Mm,
spots are below conscious awareness. That's my expertise. That's what I understand more than anything. So, my goals now are to help business leaders actually feel more alive. Work, run a show where your people feel more alive. They feel more energized. They feel that they are significant. That's the biggest thing you can do with your staff, is to help them feel significant, is that they're a part of a working cog of something that's bigger than them, that there is some meaning to what they do. When we understand those things, the blind spots actually are not as difficult or hard, because think that when you have blind spots, or when you have unconscious biases, or when you have any kind of bias, it makes you a bad person. It doesn't. It's normal. The only people that don't have these things going on are dead people. Okay, you're normal.
yeah.
So what I really get excited about is working with business leaders, and especially when they're growing and they've got new people starting and wanting to engage them and wanting to make sure that they really move the business forward, is working with them and working on the blind spots that they have. Because let's face it, intuitively, we all know we have them. So working on their blind spots or working on their people's blind spots, so that actually they're not important anymore. We dissolve them.
Yeah.
Those invisible things make very very large visible problems. So we need to work on the invisible to actually dissipate or remove completely those visible, really big challenges. There's something I worked with, I'll give you an example. I worked with a chap in Australia. I was working remotely with him. Actually, it was the board who contacted me, and the board were really moaning about their CEO, because the CEO was been with them about 18 months. He had actually doubled the turnover in that time. Okay. He's doing really, really well, but the board didn't like him. They didn't like him because he wasn't working with the spreadsheets. Every CEO they ever had was always about spreadsheets, and talking numbers, and understandably, but not all of the time. This chap didn't agree with it, you see. So he didn't talk about the spreadsheets. And the board were driving them nuts. They were driving them crazy. So I talked to each member of the board. I interviewed them and I found out what was going on and what their blind spots were. And then I spoke to this CEO and I talked to him and I said, look, the people who work for you are getting very frustrated with the way you work. He said, well, I'm bringing in the numbers. Everything's great. I said, well, how are you doing it? He said, I spend all day talking to the staff. I'm talking to the employees. I went, tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell me more. He said, I do. I go around and I say, hi, how are you doing? And then I ask them questions like, so where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Where do you want to be in 3 years' time? What's the competition doing? What's the word on the street? He was collecting intelligence all of the time. He does that. And that's the data that he worked with to turn the turnover. And the bonus is that each person he spoke to like that, and he did it all day, every day, he made them feel significant.
Yeah.
And when you make people feel significant, they rise to anything because they feel good about themselves. It's so simple. So he was finding out their blind spots. He was working with his own blind spots. He was doing everything right simply because he was going around talking to people and making sure that everybody felt significant. I love that.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's amazing. Well, Lynda, what's if people are looking to get in touch with you, obviously the stories you've shared are amazing. What you've just said there is spectacular as well. So if people are looking to get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about what you do and maybe how you can help them, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, sure. Okay, my website's drlyndashaw.com, DRLYNDASHAW. I know it's on the screen here, but gosh, when my mother gave me the name Lynda with a Y, it did complicate my life. Bless her heart. Sorry, Mum. Yeah, or email me, Lynda@drlyndashaw.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. Well, Lynda, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's such amazing stories. I could talk to you about so much more around this. I'm sure you've got so much more to share, but I definitely recommend everyone checking out and at least contacting you, visiting your website, something like that, to just learn a little bit more about you. But thank you so much for taking out the time today to be on the show, being so open with your experience in business. And I just really appreciate that. So thank you so much. And as a reminder for everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversations with their ideal prospects without having to rely on any of the old, outdated marketing methods that everybody hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. And until next episode, stay inspired.